Commander Rhea Winters stood at attention in the gleaming crystal chamber of the Aetherian embassy, her dress uniform pristine despite the 36 hours of crisis management that had preceded this moment. The translucent walls caught starlight and scattered it like diamonds, a beauty that belied the tension filling the room. "Commander Winters," Ambassador Reeves said, his voice tight with strain. "Her Royal Highness, Crown Princess Lysandra of the Aetherian Empire." The figure that entered seemed to float rather than walk, her silver-scaled skin catching the starlight in mesmerizing patterns. Princess Lysandra moved with an otherworldly grace that marked her as distinctly non-human, despite her humanoid form. Her four-fingered hands were clasped before her, and her iridescent eyes studied Rhea with an intensity that made the commander's spine straighten even further. "Your Highness," Rhea bowed precisely, maintaining the exact degree of deference required by protocol. "I understand you requested Earth's assistance specifically." "Indeed, Commander." Lysandra's voice carried an ethereal quality, like wind through crystal. "Your reputation precedes you. The incident on Proxima Beta, the evacuation of New Singapore Station, your actions saved thousands." Rhea kept her expression neutral, though her shoulder twitched at the mention of Proxima Beta. "I merely did my duty, Your Highness, and now I must ask you to do so again." Lysandra gestured, and a holographic display materialized between them, showing a sprawling star map. "My empire faces a threat from within. There are those who would see the alliance between Earth and Ether fail before it begins." The princess's fingers danced through the hologram, highlighting various systems in rapid succession. 3 attempts on my life in the past month alone. My own security forces are compromised, and I cannot trust my traditional protectors." Rhea studied the map, her tactical mind already processing patterns and possibilities. The timing isn't coincidental. With the trade agreement signing approaching, my death would throw the Empire into chaos. Lysandra finished. The progressive faction would lose its strongest voice, and the traditionalists would seize power. The alliance would crumble. Ambassador Reeves cleared his throat. "Commander Winters has an impressive record in crisis response and security operations. If anyone can ensure your safety until the signing, it's her." Lysandra's gaze never left Rhea. "Will you accept this assignment, Commander? I must warn you, it will likely mean placing yourself between me and those who wish me harm. It may mean difficult choices." Rhea met those iridescent eyes steadily. "With respect, Your Highness, my choices are rarely easy, but they are always clear." She straightened. "I accept." The next 48 hours passed in a blur of security protocols, background checks, and tactical assessments. Rhea transformed the princess's quarters into a fortress while maintaining its appearance of luxury. She vetted staff, established escape routes, and set up a network of trusted human and Aetherian personnel. What she hadn't expected was Lysandra's constant presence, the princess observing her work with keen interest and asking surprisingly technical questions. Unlike many royals Rhea had protected, Lysandra seemed genuinely engaged in her own security. "Your species adapts so quickly," Lysandra remarked on the second evening, watching Rhea program defensive protocols. "In 3 centuries of contact with humanity, that still amazes me." "We had to," Rhea replied, fingers dancing across the holographic interface. "Earth wasn't kind to us. We either adapted or died. And yet you retained your compassion, your art, your music." Lysandra's voice softened. "Many species lose those things in the fight for survival." Rhea paused, looking up at the princess. In the dim light, Lysandra's scales seemed to shimmer with their own inner luminescence. "Maybe those things are exactly why we survived." Before Lysandra could respond, the security system blared a warning. Rhea was moving before the first tone faded, tackling the princess to the ground as the window exploded inward. The sound of gunfire filled the air, and Rhea felt the heat of energy weapons passing overhead. "Stay down," she ordered, drawing her sidearm. Through the smoke, she could make out shadowy figures rappelling into the room. Standard military gear, but their movements were too precise for common mercenaries. Rhea fired twice, her shots finding their marks with practiced accuracy. 2 attackers fell, but 3 more were already inside. She needed to move the princess, but the main exit would be watched. "Your Highness," she whispered, "do you trust me?" Lysandra's hand found hers in the chaos, cool scales against warm skin. Yes. Rhea pulled a small device from her belt and threw it toward the attackers. The flashbang detonated, and she was moving, half carrying Lysandra toward a seemingly solid wall. Her fingers found the hidden panel she'd installed hours earlier, and a section of wall slid aside. They plunged into darkness, the sound of pursuit close behind. Rhea's modifications to the palace's service tunnels were about to be tested far sooner than she'd anticipated. As they ran, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The night would prove her right. Dawn broke over the capital city of Aether Prime, its triple suns casting prismatic shadows through the crystal spires. In a secure safe house 20 levels below the surface, Rhea Winters checked the perimeter sensors for the 100th time, while Princess Lysandra paced the confined space. "The High Council will be meeting in 6 hours, Lysandra said, her scaled hands clasped behind her back. "If I'm not present, the opposition will use my absence to push through emergency powers." Rhea studied the security feeds. They're counting on that. The attack wasn't just an assassination attempt. It was meant to force this exact situation. Then we must return. Lysandra stopped pacing, her iridescent eyes meeting Rhea's. "I cannot hide while my empire crumbles." "With respect, Your Highness, walking into an obvious trap won't save your empire either." Rhea pulled up a holographic display of the palace. "But you're right. We need to act. Just not in the way they expect." The quiet chime interrupted them. Rhea's hand went to her weapon, but the signal was from a trusted source. The door slid open to reveal Captain Jin Parker, Rhea's most reliable contact in Earth's diplomatic security force. "You were right," Jin said without preamble, dropping a data crystal on the table. "The weapons' signatures from the attackers. They match Imperial Guard protocols. But here's the interesting part. They're using an encryption key that was retired 3 months ago." Lysandra's scales shifted color slightly, a sign of agitation Rhea had learned to recognize. General Theron. He would have access to the old protocols, and he's always opposed the Earth Alliance. "Not just opposed," Jin added. "According to my sources, he's been meeting secretly with representatives from the Corsari Dominion." The revelation hung heavy in the air. The Corsari were notorious expansionists, having carved out their territory through conquest and subjugation. An alliance between them and traditionalist elements in the Aetherian Empire would shift the balance of power in the entire sector. Rhea's tactical mind was already forming plans. "We need proof. Something concrete enough to present to the High Council." "The General's private quarters," Lysandra said quietly. "He keeps a secure terminal there, isolated from the main network. If we could access it." "That's suicide," Jin protested. "The Imperial Wing is the most heavily guarded section of the palace." Rhea smiled grimly. "Which is exactly why they won't expect us to try." She turned to Lysandra. "Your Highness, I need to know every secret passage, every maintenance tunnel in that wing. Things even the guards might not know about." For the next hour, they planned. Lysandra's intimate knowledge of the palace's architecture proved invaluable. The Aetherian capital had been built over millennia, each generation adding new layers while preserving the old. Many of the original passages had been forgotten, preserved only in the royal family's private archives. "There's something else you should know," Jin said as they finalized the details. "The council meeting. 2 members have suddenly taken ill. Their replacements are both Theron loyalists." "How convenient," Rhea muttered. She looked at Lysandra, seeing the weight of responsibility in her bearing. "Your Highness, this mission carries significant risk. If we're caught, then my enemies win either way," Lysandra finished. "No, Commander. I will not send you into danger alone. My people need to see that their princess fights for them, not just from behind palace walls. The next few hours were a blur of preparation. Rhea and Lysandra changed into maintenance worker coveralls, their faces obscured by environmental masks common among the palace's service staff. Jin would coordinate from the safe house, monitoring security patterns and providing distractions if needed. As they prepared to leave, Lysandra caught Rhea's arm. "Commander, Rhea, if something goes wrong, I want you to know that your dedication to this mission, to my people, it means more than I can express." Rhea felt the cool touch of scaled fingers through her sleeve, saw the subtle color shifts in Lysandra's scales that betrayed deeper emotions. "Your Highness." "Lysandra, please. At least here now." Lysandra. The name felt intimate, a bridge between their worlds. "I swore to protect you. That hasn't changed." They moved through the ancient tunnels like ghosts, Lysandra leading them through passages that hadn't seen footsteps in generations. Twice they had to stop as guard patrols passed nearby, pressed close in narrow spaces while holding their breath. They'd reached the access point to Theron's quarters with 30 minutes to spare before the council meeting. Rhea worked quickly to bypass the security systems while Lysandra kept watch. The princess's natural bioluminescence, usually controlled to near invisibility, flickered with tension. The terminal yielded its secrets more easily than expected. Too easily, Rhea realized a moment too late. As the files decrypted, alarms began to blare throughout the palace. "It's a trap," she breathed, grabbing Lysandra's arm. "They knew we'd come." The door to Theron's quarters slid open, revealing the general himself flanked by armed guards. His scaled face showed no emotion, but his voice carried satisfaction. "Your Highness." "Right on schedule." Time seemed to freeze in Theron's quarters as guards leveled their weapons at Rhea and Lysandra. The general's scaled lips curled into what might have been a smile. "I must admit, your timing was predictable," Theron said, his ceremonial armor gleaming. "A desperate attempt to clear your name before the council meeting. How noble." Rhea's mind raced through options, each worse than the last. They were surrounded, outgunned, and the evidence they'd found was clearly planted. But she hadn't survived this long by giving up. "Actually," she said, her hand sliding imperceptibly toward her belt, "we're right where we want to be." The explosion rocked the palace's upper levels, exactly where Jin had planted charges as their contingency plan. In the split second of confusion, Rhea moved. Her flashbang grenade filled the room with searing light and sound. She grabbed Lysandra and pulled her toward the window. "Hold on to me," she ordered, and felt the princess's arms wrap around her waist. Rhea's grappling line shot out, anchoring to a lower spire. They crashed through the crystal window as energy weapons fire filled the air around them. The descent was brutal, the line burning through Rhea's gloves as they swung in a wide arc. Behind them, Theron's voice boomed through the palace-wide communication system. "Attention all forces. The human terrorist Rhea Winters has taken Princess Lysandra hostage. Shoot to kill protocol authorized." They landed hard on a maintenance platform, Rhea absorbing most of the impact. Lysandra helped her up, both of them knowing they had seconds before pursuit reached them. "The spaceport is locked down," Lysandra said, her scales shifting through patterns of anxiety and determination. "They'll have every ship grounded." "Good thing we're not going to the spaceport." Rhea tapped her communicator. "Jin, we need that distraction now." Across the city, a series of explosions lit up the night sky. Emergency responses would be scattered, confused. It was their best chance. They ran through maintenance corridors and service tunnels, Rhea's planned escape route taking them deeper into the industrial sector. Lysandra kept pace perfectly, her natural grace making even their desperate flight seem elegant. There, Rhea pointed to an unmarked door. "Emergency shuttle bay for mineral processing crews. Basic ships, but overlooked in a crisis," Lysandra finished. "Clever." The door didn't respond to Lysandra's royal override. Rhea wasn't surprised. Theron would have locked down everything he could. She pulled out her decoder, fingers flying over the controls. "Commander," Lysandra said softly, "if we leave now, we abandon any hope of stopping Theron legally. I'll be seen as a fugitive, proof that the traditionalists were right about human influence." Rhea didn't look up from her work. "If we stay, we die. Sometimes you have to lose ground to win the war." The door slid open, revealing a small hangar containing 3 utility shuttles. They rushed inside, but before they could reach the nearest ship, a voice rang out. "Your Highness, stop." They turned to find Captain Venna, Lysandra's former head of security, leading a squad of royal guards. Her scales were dark with emotion, her weapon trained on Rhea. "Step away from the human, Princess. Please, let us end this peacefully." Lysandra moved, but not away from Rhea. In front of her. "You know me, Venna. You've served my family for decades. Do you truly believe I would betray our people? I believe you've been missiled." Venna's weapon didn't waver. "The human alliance has clouded your judgment. Come with us now, renounce them publicly, and there's still a chance to save your position." "My position." Lysandra's voice carried a new edge. "I am not concerned with my position, Captain. I am concerned with my people. The Corsari will not be gentle allies. They will strip our worlds bare, use our technology for conquest. Is that the future you want?" Doubt flickered across Venna's features. "The Corsari. What are you?" The hangar lights cut out. In the darkness, Rhea moved with practiced efficiency. Her first shot disabled Venna's weapon. The second hit the hangar's gravity controls. As artificial gravity failed, the guards' training worked against them. They tried to compensate for conditions they weren't prepared for. Rhea and Lysandra were already moving, pushing off surfaces in the Zerog environment. They reached the shuttle just as emergency power restored partial lighting. Rhea's security codes, supposedly deactivated, still worked on the basic utility vessel. "Hold them off," she told Lysandra, rushing through pre-flight sequences. The princess proved surprisingly proficient with the shuttle's defensive systems, using warning shots to keep the recovering guards at bay. The hangar doors began to close. Rhea diverted all power to engines, ignoring every safety protocol. They shot through the narrowing gap with inches to spare, paint scraped from the shuttle's hull. As they climbed through the atmosphere, pursuit ships appeared on their sensors. But Rhea had chosen this escape route carefully. They dove into the debris field of a mineral processing station, where their small shuttle could navigate gaps the military vessels couldn't risk. That was, Lysandra paused, searching for the word. Extraordinary. But what now? Where can we go that Theron won't find us? Rhea set coordinates for their first hyperspace jump. Not where. To whom? There's someone who's been watching the Corsari expansion with great interest. Someone who might have the proof we need. Who? Ever heard of the shadow broker of Nexus Station? Lysandra's scales flickered with surprise. The information dealer. They're a myth, a story to frighten corrupt politicians. Trust me, Rhea said, initiating the jump sequence. They're very real. And they owe me a favor. As their shuttle vanished into hyperspace, Rhea caught Lysandra watching her with an unreadable expression. What is it? You could have left, the princess said quietly. When Venna offered me a way out, you could have saved yourself. Rhea met those iridescent eyes. Not without you. The stars stretched into lines of light around them as they fled into the unknown, leaving behind a city in chaos and a conspiracy still to unravel. Nexus Station hung in the void like a tarnished jewel, its countless levels wrapped in shadows and secrets. Their stolen utility shuttle docked at an unmarked bay in the station's lower rings, where questions weren't asked and credits bought silence. Rhea led Lysandra through cramped corridors, both of them wrapped in plain spacer's clothing. The princess's natural luminescence was dimmed to near darkness, but she couldn't completely hide the ethereal grace of her movement. The shadow broker's network runs deeper than anyone suspects, Rhea explained quietly. They've been tracking Corsari movements for years, building a database of their real activities versus their public claims. And you trust this broker? Lysandra asked, her hand brushing Rhea's arm as they navigated a particularly narrow passage. Trust is a strong word on Nexus Station. Rhea paused at an intersection, checking for followers. But I trust their desire to profit from the Corsari's eventual downfall. That's worth more than friendship here. They reached a nondescript door marked only with a faded commercial logo. Rhea placed her palm on the scanner, and after a moment, the door slid open to reveal a dimly lit office. Behind a cluttered desk sat a figure obscured by sophisticated holographic distortion. Commander Winters, the broker's voice was artificially modulated, neither male nor female, young nor old. I wondered when events would bring you here. You've been expecting us. I expect everything, Commander. It's how I stay alive. The broker's disguised form gestured to chairs. Please, sit. Even deposed royalty deserves comfort. Lysandra tensed, but Rhea touched her arm gently. They sat, and the broker produced a data crystal. The Corsari have been planning this for decades, the distorted voice continued. Infiltrating governments, positioning assets. The Aetherian Empire was just one piece of a larger puzzle. The crystal projected a complex web of connections. Trade routes, military movements, political appointments. At its center was not General Theron, but a name that made Lysandra's scales flash with shock. Impossible, she whispered. Regent Darius, my own uncle. The Corsari offered him something he couldn't resist. The broker said, not just power, but immortality. Their biotech division has made breakthroughs in genetic manipulation. They promised him eternal life in exchange for delivering the Empire. Rhea studied the data, her tactical mind assembling the pieces. The assassination attempts weren't meant to kill you. They were meant to force you into hiding, so Theron could implement emergency powers. Then Darius would step in as regent, sign the alliance with the Corsari, and my people would be slaves. Lysandra finished, her voice hard. How many others are involved? The broker named names, each one a fresh wound. Ministers, generals, nobles Lysandra had known since childhood. The betrayal ran deep, spreading through every level of government. This is enough to expose them, Rhea said, but the broker raised a hand. Data can be disputed, denied. You need something more concrete. They produced another crystal. In 48 hours, the conspirators are meeting on Helios Prime. Everyone will be there. Darius, Theron, the Corsari representatives. One recording of that meeting would be irrefutable proof. It's a trap, Rhea said immediately. They have to know we'd learn about it. Of course it's a trap. The broker's distortion flickered, but it's also your only chance. Sometimes the obvious trap is the only path forward. They left the broker's office with both crystals and a heavy silence between them. In their rented room several levels away, Lysandra finally spoke. I have to go to that meeting. We have to go, Rhea corrected, but we're not going alone. She activated her communicator. Jin, you there? Always. Jin's voice was tight with concern. I've been monitoring chatter. It's bad out there, Commander. How many of our people can you trust? Absolutely trust. Maybe a dozen, but they're scattered across 3 systems. Get them to Helios Prime. We're going to need everything we have for this. Later, as they planned their approach, Lysandra watched Rhea work. The human's dedication, her unwavering focus, stirred something deep in the princess's heart. Why do you do this? She asked softly. Risk everything for an alien princess and her political problems. Rhea looked up, meeting those iridescent eyes. Because it's right. Because your people deserve better than being pawns in someone else's game. She paused. Because I believe in you. The distance between them seemed to vanish. Lysandra's scales shifted through colors of emotion she couldn't hide. Her hand found Rhea's, cool scales against warm skin. When this is over, the princess said, if we survive. When we survive, Rhea corrected gently. When we survive, Lysandra agreed. There will be changes needed in the Empire. Reforms. A new way of thinking about our place in the galaxy. Her fingers intertwined with Rhea's. I'll need someone I can trust. Someone who sees beyond our differences to what we could be together. The word together hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. Before Rhea could respond, Jin's voice crackled over the comm. Commander, we've got trouble. Corsari ships just dropped out of hyperspace. They're scanning the station. Rhea squeezed Lysandra's hand once before releasing it. How long until they find us? Hours, maybe less. And Commander, they're not alone. I'm picking up Aetherian military signatures too. They're not even trying to hide it anymore, Lysandra said, her voice cold. They think they've already won. Rhea began gathering their equipment. Then let's prove them wrong. Jin, tell our people to meet us on Helios Prime. We're moving up the timeline. As they prepared to run once more, Rhea caught Lysandra watching her with an intensity that made her heart race. Together, the princess asked. Rhea nodded. Together. The word felt like a promise, one that would carry them through whatever challenges lay ahead. As they made their way to the shuttle bay, both knew that success or failure, their lives had become irrevocably intertwined. Helios Prime glowed like molten gold in the light of its dying sun. The ancient mining colony had long since been abandoned by all but the desperate and the dangerous, perfect for a clandestine meeting of conspirators. Rhea crouched in the ventilation system of the old administrative complex, Lysandra beside her. Below, through the grating, they could see the gathering. General Theron, Regent Darius, and a dozen other Aetherian nobles stood with 3 Corsari representatives, their chitinous armor gleaming dully. Recording active. Jin's voice whispered through their comms. Teams are in position. Lysandra's scales rippled with barely contained emotion as her uncle spoke. The transition must be seamless, Darius was saying. Once the princess is eliminated, the emergency powers will transfer to me. The integration of Corsari forces can begin immediately. And the humans? One of the Corsari asked, mandibles clicking. They'll be dealt with, Theron assured them. The death of their commander at the hands of terrorists will give us pretext to void the alliance. Rhea felt Lysandra tense beside her. The princess's hand found hers in the darkness, squeezing gently. The biotech facilities are ready, another Corsari said. Your immortality awaits, Regent. All we require is unrestricted access to Aetherian space. You'll have it, Darius promised. And more. The combined might of our empires will. The explosion rocked the building, right on schedule. As alarms blared, Rhea and Lysandra moved. The ventilation grate fell, and they dropped into chaos. Now, Rhea shouted into her comm. Jin's team breached from multiple points, filling the room with flashbangs and smoke. The conspirators scrambled for weapons, but they were caught completely off guard. Theron recovered first, his energy rifle targeting Rhea. But Lysandra was faster. Her ceremonial blade, concealed until now, flashed in the emergency lights as she parried the shot. Your Highness, Theron sneered, come to die with your human pet. No, General, Lysandra's voice carried the weight of generations of royal authority. I came to take back my empire. The battle was swift and brutal. Jin's team had trained for this, their coordination perfect. The Corsari representatives fought viciously, but found themselves outmatched by human special forces. Rhea moved through the chaos like a dance, her shots precise. She and Lysandra fought back to back, their movements synchronized as if they'd trained together for years instead of days. Darius is running, Lysandra called out, deflecting another shot. Go, Rhea replied. I'll handle Theron. The general proved a formidable opponent, his military augmentations giving him enhanced speed and strength. But Rhea hadn't survived this long by fighting fair. She led him through the smoke, drawing him away from his allies. "You're a fool, Commander," Theron spat. "You fight for a dying empire, a weak princess who would surrender our heritage to aliens." "No," Rhea said, dodging his attack. "I fight for someone who sees beyond heritage to possibility. Someone who understands that strength comes from unity, not conquest." Their fight took them through corridors and abandoned offices. Theron's augmentations gave him the advantage in direct combat, but Rhea had planned this battlefield carefully. She led him exactly where she wanted him. The floor beneath Theron collapsed. Jin's team had weakened the structure precisely for this moment. As the general fell, Rhea's shot found its mark. The architect of betrayal fell into darkness. She found Lysandre in what had once been the colony's control center. Darius lay disarmed, his scaled face twisted with hatred as his niece held him at blade point. "It's over, Uncle," Lysandre said softly. "The recording has already been transmitted. Your conspirators are in custody. The Corsari representatives will testify to save themselves." "You understand nothing," Darius snarled. "The old ways made us strong. This human weakness will destroy us." "No," Lysandre's voice was firm. "Your fear of change would destroy us. I choose a different path." Hours later, as Alliance ships secured the facility and processed prisoners, Rhea found Lysandre standing alone, watching Helios Prime's sunset. "The Council has received the evidence," Rhea said quietly. "They're convening an emergency session. Your allies are already moving to secure key positions." Lysandre nodded, her scales shifting through colors of exhaustion and relief. "There will be resistance. Many still believe as my uncle does. They'll learn." Rhea stepped closer. "Your people are stronger than he thought, more adaptable. Thanks to you." Lysandre turned, her iridescent eyes meeting Rhea's. "I meant what I said on Nexus Station. I need someone I can trust, someone who understands both worlds." "What exactly are you asking, Your Highness?" Lysandre smiled, her scales flickering with colors Rhea had come to recognize as affection. "I'm asking you to stay, not just as my protector, but as my partner. Help me build something new, a true alliance between our peoples." Rhea took Lysandre's hand, feeling the now familiar texture of scales against skin. Together, together. Their kiss was witnessed only by the dying sun of Helios Prime, its light painting them in shades of gold. Human and Aetherian, warrior and princess, their differences bridged by something stronger than heritage or duty. In the years that followed, the story would be told throughout the galaxy. How love between two worlds helped forge an alliance that would change the course of history. But in that moment, as Rhea held Lysandre close, the future was simply a promise waiting to be kept. The stars wheeled overhead, unchanged by the politics of empires or the hearts of those who guided them. But on Helios Prime, as day faded to night, something new had begun, something that would echo through generations to come.